Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having an incredible day. To start things off, the price of Bitcoin closed above $10,000 on Thursday for the first time since February. Bitcoin is on the way of a seventh consecutive positive weekly close. The price of Bitcoin has more than doubled since mid-March, when the price crashed below 4,000. The recent upsurge in the price of Bitcoin has surfaced in the wake of the halving event that is scheduled to take place next week. I believe it is Monday, if I am not mistaken. The leading cryptocurrency witnessed a rise of over 9% as it closed above $10,000 on Thursday. At the time of writing, Bitcoin is changing hands at just around, I think it's around 9,850, 9,900, depending on where you look, with a 6.5% rise in the last 24 hours. So what happened is I woke up to several texts from my friend, hello to you, pretty much just of screenshots of the price kind of going completely insane. It happened while I was sleeping, and I'm sure many of you are as well now currently sleeping. So what ended up happening was, of course, whenever we have that big run up, there's always a bit of a pullback, but it wasn't a huge pullback. It was more like a fear pullback. The fear that other people are going to be selling once that $10,000 mark has been hit. I think we dropped down to 97.40 from when I was looking at the charts. We are currently, at the time of me making this video, on our way back up. There's a chart right there. We went boop and then boop. On Thursday, the leading cryptocurrency broke above the ascending channel that it had been forming since its crash 7 weeks ago. Bitcoin continues to prove its status of the highly volatile asset as the price went from $6,600 to $10,000 within 3 weeks. The nearest target for the rise now at the yearly high of $10,550. The Relative Strength Index, or the RSI, on the daily scale has reached the overbought region at 80, signaling the beginning of FOMO, fear of missing out. The open interest on the crypto derivatives exchange BitMEX is also significantly low on Thursday's crash. I am wholeheartedly expecting at this point, this is just an assumption, as the Monday time frame is now the estimate given for when the halving is going to take place, as it is, wait for it, Friday. I don't know what day it is anymore. They kind of all blend together because of everything that's happening. As we are Friday, I'm going to assume over the weekend, regardless if we get positive news or not, I assume we will get tons of articles about the halving happening. And I think that's going to cause the price to rise up. I don't know how high it's going to rise at this point. I will be honest with you. I would not be surprised if Bitcoin went to 14,000. Once again, that's not a joke. But BUT, expect a pullback in price. A lot of this is very FOMO based, as it were. A lot of people are afraid of missing out on any potential price gains. But what's going to end up happening is, as it always happens, as it just happened when we crossed by 10,000, people are going to buy into the market. It's going to go insane, and then the price is going to come back down. I would not be shocked if by next Saturday, that's to say a good 2 weeks away, we are floating around a $7,700 Bitcoin. Mr. Schiff and a bunch of other people will come onto the news talking about how great gold is and how volatile Bitcoin is. And then that's when we begin the great ascent, because we need the halving to not only happen, but the halving crash, air quotes, to also happen after the hype is done. And that's when the real mega accumulation ends up starting. So, of course, this is the major news for the day. Bitcoin shot up. Other coins started to move up as well, but they didn't do as amazingly as one might have expected as Bitcoin. Because I'm pretty sure weren't we at 9,200 yesterday? I don't remember the exact number, but that is a major upswing for a short amount of time. Bitcoin had a lot of the movement upward. When I looked at the charts earlier, the Satoshi prices were all in red for other coins, and also their upward movement, percentage-wise, going up, were also red as well. So Bitcoin was the only thing in green. And once again, we can assume this is because of the strength around the halving. But yeah, let's move on. Holy gosh, this news was everywhere. Unprecedented money printing by central banks is turning institutional investors to Bitcoin. The latest on board is Paul Tudor Jones, founder of a hedge fund that manages over $40 billion in assets. Paul Tudor Jones is a renowned investor that broke into the limelight by predicting the Black Monday stock market crash of 1987. In a report issued on behalf of the Tudor BVI fund, which boasts an asset under management, asset under management of over $22 billion, he outlined why he has invested in, or why he was interested in Bitcoin. It's fairly clear that he's invested in Bitcoin as well. Jones makes a reasoned argument that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation and growing uncertainty in the global economy. Bitcoin is often called digital gold, even though the two assets are nuanced in their own respects. But speaking on his beginnings of investment industry, he said, Bitcoin reminds me of gold when I first got in the business in 1976 on comparing cash, financial stocks, and bonds, gold and Bitcoin on each asset's ability to store value. Jones noted that Bitcoin's volatility makes it a poor store of value, which is true for the moment. It does, however, have portability that is unrivaled by its competitors. Moreover, Jones finds the proposition of a 24/7 market with consistent liquidity compelling, especially in today's hazy economic environment. You may remember a couple of weeks ago, there was another economist who came forward and said he was waiting a couple of years. I think his time frame was 3, 4, 5 years or something like that. He said he had heard about Bitcoin. He had seen some of the price movements up, but he said he wanted to see if during these crashes that he knew were going to happen, if Bitcoin would not only survive, remain, but also still have adequate amount of liquidity flowing through it as all of these periods were taking place. And he said his biggest shock was that he didn't expect a market that was open 24 hours a day to be able to survive with little trust, i.e. the trust being you don't have to trust other people, because this is why we have nodes in the blockchain. You can have 1,000 nodes, and therefore you don't have to trust 1,000 people. The network kind of does it for you as it's doing the calculation. So this is now another really big thing that they're finally slowly starting to realize, because it's also, listen, if you have a market, traditional markets that are open, 8, 9 hours during the course of a day, I don't know the exact amount of time, then eventually they shut off, you're not making any money. In a world where money making apparently seems to be important, because, life, the fact that something could be open 24 hours a day and have tons of liquidity flowing through it, especially if you have an automated system where these bots are kind of trading back and forth and can make you profits not just 8 hours of the day, but 3 times as long the entire day, you are going to be very interested in it. He said, I am not an advocate of Bitcoin ownership in isolation, but do recognize its potential in a period when we have the most unorthodox economic policies in modern history. Here's the actual thing right here on Scribd. It says May 2020 BVI letter macro outlook. Market outlook, macro perspective, the great monetary inflation, and I believe it was on page 8. Give me a second, I'm almost there. Yes, here. The next category we discussed is determining whether or not something was a good store of value, was trustworthiness. No surprise here, Bitcoin got the lowest score. Hold on, I'll explain why. Because it is also the youngest. Bitcoin's only been around for 11 years. Someone mentioned that it has 60 million users in almost 200 countries, but that did nothing to sway people. Because people, and I assume a lot of times if you give any type of the word isn't lecture, like a survey to people who already either own gold or know little about Bitcoin, they're not going to be swayed by the fact that there are tons of, 60 million users is a huge amount of people to be using something. But you also have to understand, especially for all of you as well, it happens to all of us. It took us a while to get into Bitcoin. You may hear about it. You may have heard about it. Your friend may own some. It takes a while to kind of crack that barrier and to really get into it yourself. And then even after only about a year, I want to say 1.5 years of you being in the space, do you really kind of get it? So I'm not concerned or surprised with the fact that it did not sway tons of people. It says gold, as one would have guessed, scored first in this category, as it has stood the test of time for thousands of years. The fact that we are even having discussions constantly, almost on an every other daily basis, nonstop in the news, that there are tons of investors who are saying that Bitcoin is going to usurp gold, move gold out of the way, or that money, that a portion of the money from gold currently sitting in gold will move into Bitcoin, is insane. Because that gives us the time frame. Gold has been used as a store of value and or a store of wealth and or a precious metal jewelry for what is it, 5, 6, 7,000 years that we have like some type of records of, because before that people were using seashells and rocks, and which is also really interesting if you've never seen like the rock documentary. People used to like carve into rocks and kind of like leave them in front of people's houses. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, yeah, something that's been around or been used that we have knowledge of for at least 5, 6,000 years, give or take, and then something that's been around for 11, and then even up to the time frame that Bitcoin probably within the next 5 years will be able to take a huge portion of the money in gold and move that into Bitcoin. That is 16 years old that this thing has been around. Again, something that has been around for thousands of years, and yeah, that's kind of crazy to even have that discussion. I'm not going to read through the entire thing. You see it's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of text. But for those of you looking at the screen, this is the discussion that he was having. Where's the other, really? I can't find it. There's far too much. I guess it says owning Bitcoin is a great way to defend oneself against the GMI, given the current fact set. As Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous creator of Bitcoin, stated in an online forum around the time he launched Bitcoin, he said the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, which is a problem because they constantly do so. But the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. He says, I am not an advocate of Bitcoin ownership in isolation, but do recognize its potential in a period where we have the most unorthodox economic policies in modern history. So we need to adapt our investment strategy. We have updated the Tudor BVI, offering memoranda to disclose the way or that we may trade Bitcoin futures for Tudor BVI. We have set the initial maximum exposure guideline, purchasing Bitcoin futures to a low single-digit exposure percentage of Tudor's BVI net assets, which seems prudent. We will review this exposure guideline regularly. I assume they're going to do the 1, 2, or 3% allocation of some of the funds into the Bitcoin space. Now, here's the interesting part for me as always. And this isn't even a tinfoil hat moment. It's just a if you read books and if you understand how the world works kind of moment. So, we have... Wait, is this it? First of all, here, like I said, this news was all over the place. I'm pretty sure I went over this news about a day or two or some ago. It says Bitcoin may blow past 100,000 by 2021. This was said by Morgan Creek CEO. You have to understand that all these people, like the people within the cryptocurrency space, they all know each other. And like I said, it's not a tinfoil hat moment. It's not, oh my gosh, I think they know each other. No. If you look at, if you've never seen documentaries on the UK Parliament or the Congress in America, all these people went to the same universities, sometimes the same high schools, same after school, blah, blah, blah. They all know each other in some sort of way. And I mentioned before that there are going to be multiple phases of Bitcoin adoption. The first phase was us. The second phase was, I want to say, like institutional money. You can kind of say that. But the larger part of the second phase is this. I said the moment we start getting hedge funds talking about it, this is going to trickle down in a way that we can't even begin to mentally understand at the moment. And trickle down as far as when you, there's not just like one hedge fund in the world. There are multiple hedge funds in the world, and they all try to vie and be the biggest and baddest and blah, 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 blah as time ends up going on. They all want to make the best profit so they can end up in Forbes and stuff like that. When you have one of the largest hedge funds on this planet talking about that they're getting into Bitcoin, this opens up a signal for all the other investors around the world, the major billion-dollar investors. Hey, you should also be allocating at least 1% of your funds into this new magical internet money as well. This creates a huge, gigantic rush, and it's not even a trickle effect. It creates this huge rush towards the asset because they go, if they're going to make money, especially the other part of this phase 2 is when we start seeing how much profits these hedge funds make from Bitcoin. That is going to be the nail in the coffin isn't what I'm trying to say, but you get what, like, it's like the final solidification of the entire thing. Phase 1 is us. Phase 2 is the big money, which has officially entered the building. There's no real turning back from this anymore. The part I meant as far as like all these people knowing each other, you have to understand when you look at, I mean, even documentaries as to how some of the people who are in power made their money, it's because once again, they went to school with these people who now own these hedge funds. And they're also best friends. They also so-and-so, and they give them investment advice. So one can only assume that this guy probably knows more than one rich person. He probably knows tons of people who are also in power. Once again, I mean, just how the world kind of works. So when I see news like this, especially when you end up, all the major hedge fund managers are now talking about how great Bitcoin is. It took them about a good 2 years to come out of the woodworks to be able to say, oh yeah, we may have a Bitcoin, no more than a Bitcoin, but it's clear that they have tons of Bitcoin. When you're talking about that Bitcoin may blow past 100,000 by 2021, you're talking about that you're allocating a huge portion of the $60 billion that you are currently custodying, whatever the word might actually be. You're going to allocate a part of that, even if it's just into Bitcoin futures. You are trying to gain some sort of exposure to this new asset class. They're telling other people as well that this is also a case to now get into this market as well. And what ends up happening is that you end up having other world leaders also getting into this market as well. That's the one thing. Phase 3 is the public. And I don't mean us. We are not, and as ridiculous as that might sound, we are not part of the public. We are not part of the people who are going to get into the cryptocurrency market. We are here. We are the early adopters, even though it may not seem so. When you end up talking about a Bitcoin price anywhere from going from 3,000 at the beginning of this year to 9,000 to 10,000, where we currently roughly are, to a Bitcoin price of 100,000, $250,000, $1 million Bitcoin over the course of the next 10 years, you go from 9,000 to $1 million. We are the early adopters. However, this is not going to be good for everyone because, remember, I've mentioned this before. We are going to enter a period, and I think we're slowly starting getting into it right now. I give it another 6 months before it really solidifies. I think Bitcoin, sorry, I'm talking too fast. I think Bitcoin has to hit, this is the number, $50,000 for phase 3 to really begin. When Bitcoin is far out of the reach of everyday normal people, that's when these people will be told to get into Bitcoin. It's only when something shines very brightly like a gold that other people are told you have to get into it, but it's also something that's unobtainable for them to be able to get in at a full price. There are very few people right now. I don't know the spot price of gold. I'm literally not sure if it's between 12 or 1800. I haven't looked in the last couple of while. Even if gold, a single ounce is $1,200, it's very difficult to tell people right now who are not getting paychecks, who are not getting so-and-so, maybe people who are even working 2 or 3 jobs, hey, buy an ounce of gold every single month. But they may still invest in gold in fragments. It's the same exact thing that's going to end up happening for Bitcoin. But phase 3 won't be a full-on tidal wave of these people themselves trying to get into the cryptocurrency market, because I still think that they won't be able to understand the entirety of why they should be getting into it, even when Bitcoin ends up hitting $50,000 to $100,000. It's going to be these hedge funds, and it's also going to be mutual funds and other stock funds and stuff like that who are going to start allocating a portion of their funds into cryptocurrencies. And therefore, this is when we get into the other part that I was talking about last year that I was really excited about, when we end up hearing about the retirement funds, which there are a few now around the world who have bought up Bitcoin as an allocation for the actual retirement funds of those people. When this starts picking up, this is the way that normal people end up getting into the market. This is what creates that huge rise and that huge flood. Where we were also looking at the charts last year as well, where we're kind of like the adoption phase, if you will. At some point, it kind of goes completely insane around the year 2022, 2025. Somewhere within that, I'm like flailing my hands around, somewhere within that time frame. This is because, once again, the trickle-down effect ends up happening. By the end of this year, if we end up hearing that this hedge fund or whatever has made $250 to $500 million just off of investing in Bitcoin over the course of a 6-month to a 12-month period, everyone else is going to perk up, and they're also going to start getting into the market as well. This causes other funds and stuff like that to even just buy up 100 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin, just some type of Bitcoin exposure. But once again, there's not only one mutual fund. There's not only one hedge fund. There's not only one stock fund. There are tons of these. There are also other small businesses and other smaller investors who are also going to want to get into the cryptocurrency space to be able to share some of these profits, to get some of these profits. There's a reason why there's tons of people who have gotten into the stock market listening to what Warren Buffett has said. You see that he's made money. People also want to make money. Which companies does he own? I will therefore buy portions of this company as well. If Warren Buffett wasn't here, these people would have never gotten to the stock market. It would have been someone else, of course, who would have also coerced them to get into that market. But it's kind of the same exact thing. The more people that get into Bitcoin, the more that the price rises, the more other people become interested. The more that the price rises, because those other people are also buying cryptocurrency, the more that they tell their friends, and it kind of continues going on this way. So when we end up getting to a point where Bitcoin hits $50,000, it then becomes completely unobtainable. I mean, even right now, the fact that Bitcoin is at $10,000, if you own an entire Bitcoin, bam, you're doing exceedingly well. There are not many people in this world who even have a net worth of $10,000, nonetheless own an asset that is worth $10,000. That's something completely out of the minds and realm of many other people on this planet. The point is, after all of that, I realized I blacked out. I remember half of what I was saying. We are currently in phase 2 in my head. I have all these phases in my head. Phase 2 is the mega rich adoption. They are accumulating in mass behind the scenes. It may simply be over cryptocurrency exchanges. It may be over the counter. It may simply be that someday somebody's like, I have 50,000, just throw it into the Bitcoin market. Buy me a couple of Bitcoin and I'll think about it in a couple of years. This causes a huge amount of shortage, especially as we end up getting closer to the actual halving. Third part, everyday normal people who are going to either at some point, they're going to see a family member at Thanksgiving or at Christmas who is going to mention, hey, I made a good couple of bucks. Yeah, didn't you have an entire Bitcoin? And that kind of sets things off. This is also what happened in 2017 for those who weren't here. I think it was called like the Thanksgiving and the Christmas run. I can't remember the terminology that was kind of used. It was that I think Bitcoin had gone from 900 by Thanksgiving. It was around $12,000, $13,000, $14,000. I think that was kind of the thing. It was all over in the news. Everyone was going completely insane. And tons of people told their family members sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, you should get into this thing that I got into. I made so much money this year. And that's part of the reason also why it's believed that this huge flood ended up happening. Phase 4 is probably the easiest because we will have passed by initial adoption. We will have passed by big money getting into it, because once big money gets into the cryptocurrency space or into any space, they've evaluated, reevaluated, they've crunched all the numbers, and therefore they know that this is going to be a success. I mentioned that before. I said once we end up seeing the big money get into any kind of space, it's because they've done their research over the course of 2, 3, 4 years. The last thing you're going to do with $60 billion is to have a 1% exposure into an asset that's going to fall to zero. It's just not going to happen. That's not going to be a thing that you're going to, because the moment you lose even a 1% allocation into some other risky asset and that loses tons of money for your other investors, you get kicked out as the hedge fund manager and someone else ends up going in. We've seen these articles before. Yeah, we have a new hedge fund manager, a new CEO. Like it happens quite often, more often than you would imagine, because these people end up putting this. And the point is, after all that ends up taking place, phase 4 is the, what do I call it? It's not the reckoning. It's kind of like this, I call it the moving on. And the moving on has to do with once people like Peter Schiff, Warren Buffett, all these other people in the next 10 years, this is the longest phase. Once they've realized that they've been defeated, once Bitcoin hits $50,000, Warren Buffett and Peter Schiff and many other people, a lot of their followers were kind of turned their backs on them. It hurts a lot when someone could have told you to get into an asset. I think Peter Schiff was talking garbage about Bitcoin when it was around $26. If someone could have told you to get into an asset at $26, $200, $1,200, $5,000, and it's currently worth $50,000, $100,000, $500,000, you turn your backs on them. You go, that's not, I should have also been making money. What ends up, these people who shift away put more money into the cryptocurrency space, but at that point, Bitcoin is far too unobtainable for them to even think about owning an entire one. It's going to be impossible for these people to put in $500,000 to own one Bitcoin. There's also the psychological barrier. Do I dare put $500,000 into something? That's one thing. And this is why the early adopters will be the most rewarded for this, because in essence, if you put 5, 6, 7, 8,000 into one Bitcoin, it goes up to $500,000. The price falls down to 300,000. You still made 200 something thousand. You're completely in the clear. The moving on happens when these other big investors who don't like cryptocurrencies, who hate the cryptocurrency space, who talk ill of it every single day, they disappear. Not as in like a poof event, but it's more like they shift their focus onto some other investment class that they don't like, that they don't care for, and they start talking negatively about that. It's when we finally stop hearing from these people that the moving on and phase 4 will be complete in all of this, and that is that Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space are widely accepted and well known as a very strong asset class. We are phase 2.5. but it's going to take a while for phase 3 to actually initiate, because we also need the banks to be in it. We don't need the banks to be in it, air quote, but banks activate this thing where they start. We've already seen it last year as well. The banks in Germany and the other banks who are trying to custody cryptocurrency and or offer cryptocurrency services. Why would banks be getting into cryptocurrencies, especially when Bitcoin is only 11 years old? They've gone over the numbers. They've all spoken to each other. And they know that this is going to be something big that they can take advantage of and that they can buy up tons of it and then become richer. That is just kind of how it goes. When you start seeing, and this will take a couple of years, or you start being offered something at your bank, at some point, maybe you all sat with someone in your bank, had a discussion with someone, and they tell you how to allocate some of your funds, how to allocate some of your assets. I've had this discussion many other times with them. They'll simply tell you to put your money into the stock market, put your money into so-and-so. When they start advising you to put your money into a cryptocurrency fund, or to put 20% of your money into a cryptocurrency fund, or when you start seeing your job, like I said, this will take a while, start offering a portion of a cryptocurrency fund or a Bitcoin fund, that's when phase 3 has completely solidified itself as well. There are a lot of jobs actually already offering to pay people's salaries completely in crypto. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh, I would love to be paid completely in Bitcoin. That would be, woof. The point is, yeah, that is, everything I see is already coming true. We have droplets of the other phases already beginning, but it's going to take 5 to 10 years. I can't see the exact number or the exact time, but it's going to happen. It's already here. You have to understand, all of these people know each other. It's not a false statement. Whether they're from Asia, whether they're from Africa, whether they are from Europe or South America, rich people usually tend to flock together and they all go to the same schools. These people all know each other. So you have to imagine that if these people are talking about, or these rich people are accumulating Bitcoin, they're telling their friends to also get into this trade as well. That's just how it works. So we are going to live in a world in the next 10 years where wealth is, if you think things are unequal now, just get ready for the future, because you haven't seen anything. I promise you. You have no idea what's actually coming. The people who will benefit the most are the early adopters and the people who are talking about that Bitcoin is going to blow past 100,000. These people have accumulated massive amounts of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And this is why we had the news before. Remember this? That we're going to see the world's first trillionaire within our lifetime. And they're probably going to be someone who is within the cryptocurrency space. So be prepared for that. Anyway, yeah, that's that news. It's quite fascinating how far we've come, how much farther we have to go. But everything is lining up as I expected it to, for better or for worse. But yeah, let's move on. Next up, he looks like a Pinocchio toy. That's a very weird drawing. Vitalik Buterin believes that Ethereum can play a role in a future global crisis as the glue that helps bind nations together. The Ethereum co-founder spoke at the Ethereal Summit of 2020 on the 7th of May to the Defiance Cami Russo. I don't know what those words mean. Describing the current global crisis as a more than just a financial one, Buterin said the levels of political discord and distrust between countries had highlighted the need for a network like Ethereum. He said, I definitely think there's a role for blockchains, and Ethereum in particular, to play in being this kind of neutral global player role for their systems, currencies, and applications to interact. I think anything created and maintained by nation states can't play that role. When pressed by Russo as to whether he thought of Ethereum's network as a network connecting these nations with Ether as the currency, Buterin agreed. He cited concerns around censorship, privacy, and institutions as factors driving people towards cryptocurrency and blockchain. So remember I said there was the Ethereal Summit yesterday and also today. This was the only news I saw from that. I wish I was half joking. It was only the news that Vitalik Buterin spoke on stage about the connecting of Ethereum between countries, which if you kind of not even dig, you don't have to dig that deep. Like I said before, we know that other world governments have spoken with Vitalik, and also they've openly come out saying that they're going to be using Ethereum. So I don't know if that's like a slip, and he kind of let the information go too quick, as if they have plans to use Ether as the currency between them. Or is it simply a wishful thinking that they're going to use Ether as the currency, but simply use the Ethereum network as the connector between themselves? Anyway, I'm not joking. That was the only news about the Ethereal Summit. Not joking. I think there were multiple speakers. No news about them. None at all. That's the Ethereum news. And let's move on. Next up, per new updates to a bill to amend California securities laws introduced in the state's legislative body on the 5th of May, the largest economy in the U.S. and the world's tech hub. I think, wait, isn't it? If California was its own country, it's like the 9th largest economy in the world or something obscene like that. I think that's what it was. And the world's tech hub may be providing new clarity to crypto owners. Updates to the definition of what constitutes a security include investment contract, except any digital asset that meets one of the following criteria is presumptively not an investment contract. The criteria named are more or less a line reading of the Howey test, a federal metric. We went over a lot of this in 2017 and 18. Pretty much something that is defined as a security within the United States is something that you buy with an expectation of profit. You buy a stock or a bond because you expect to make a profit from it in the future. In defining what keeps a digital asset from the last qualifier of the work of a third party, the California bill says any changes to the software code underlying that asset may be made by network participants. Voting rights over the functioning of the asset are conferred to each holder of the asset. So if it's decentralized and you're able to vote on the network if you're holding the asset. Cool. The bill comes from California Assembly Majority Leader Ian Calderon. Calderon initially introduced his bill to update the securities law in February. The new updates, however, hone in on the role of crypto. Here's the actual bill right here on a Legiscan, my English. It says California Assembly Bill 2150. The bill title is Corporate Securities Exception, Digital Assets. I am shocked that they are trying to get this through. I assume it has to do with money because with the entire Libra launching, that has gotten a lot of people more interested in the cryptocurrency space. And I assume, I mean, the Silicon Valley has been into Bitcoin and crypto since a very long time, a lot longer than people actually assume. But I assume now that this is having to do with the fact that if a lot of new coins are going to be coming out, or just in general, nobody wants to be taxed a certain way or be hampered by certain things that may be, like, nobody wants to be deemed a security. Even though it's not the most detrimental thing in the entire world, if you are a security, you are then in essence able to be traded on a stock exchange. However, that also means that you're under the purview or view of the SEC, and everyone kind of just wants to do their own thing. A lot of people don't mind being taxed, if you will, on certain things, and or being or having to simply tell a government body at the end of the year what's going on, but to have someone constantly breathing down your neck, that's not anything that anybody wants. Do I think this is going to pass? Maybe. I was definitely close to saying a big no, as we've seen a lot of these things try to pass before. However, I think California could have a pretty good chance. There seems like there's enough money behind the scenes, if you will, that could get this pushed through. If it does, and California starts seeing a huge uptick in the amount of cryptocurrency companies flowing their way, that also then pressures other states and other places around the world to also go, okay, we have to change our laws, and that kind of makes things better for crypto. I mean, regardless, we know that Bitcoin itself is not a security, so that discussion kind of just comes down to newer coins that are being created, such as the Telegrams and the Tons and the thises and that's and the so-and-sos. Anyway, yeah, good for them. It would be fascinating if this ends up going through, but I try to keep a level head because, you know, sometimes life. There's a lot of red here. Jeez Louise. It scratched out a lot of this. All right, anyway. Let's move on. And to finish things off, Mexico's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Bitso, is reporting massive growth in the volume of its cross-border transactions utilizing Ripple and ZERP. The company's co-founder and president, Daniel Fogel, said the remittances are rising exponentially in recent months. He said, on the side of Bitso, we see an exponential increase in the processing of remittances through the technology of Ripple, XRP, and Bitso. In April, we processed over 4.3 billion pesos in remittances. Between April of 2019 and April of 2020, the volume of Bitso remittances grew from 320,000 US dollars to 179 million, an increase of 55,000%. That's quite a big increase. That's a lot. 320,000 to 179 million. The largest crypto exchange in Mexico relies on Ripple's ODL, or on-demand liquidity, to power its borderless transactions using ZERP as a bridge currency. The remittance platform works by converting fiat currency in one country to XRP and sending the digital asset to a corresponding crypto exchange in another country where it's then swapped back to fiat. That's insane. I remember reading or seeing articles, and I think I maybe went over them, that there was a huge spike on the XRP ledger of XRP being used over the last couple of months. I assume Bitso is part of that as well, and I guess maybe that's also part of the, dare I say, increasing bullishness of XRP over the last couple of months, and maybe even the price rises when we actually see that an asset is being used in some sort of way. Therefore, this sometimes causes a price rise. So that's actually quite insane. 320 to 179 million. And I assume that number could go up if we also have a bull run and or other systems end up getting turned on who are also going to be using XRP. Quite fascinating indeed. As always, I have to unlock my phone. A very special thank you. No? Okay, text. Very special thank you to my Patreon supporters. Professor Wally from Gunbot University, Utopia 569, Yasha Harari, Moonman High, XRP, The Pothead, Joshua Vineyard, Martin Stoyer, Chongo Lolo, Tsongo Lolo, Nostromo, John Sarson, The Animal Reader, A Bibliophobia, Todd Mullis, Adam Graysick, Mohair Maroni, Master Ventures in Thailand, Jared Schneider, Wise Night Owl, 242 to the World, Crypto Joe, Bankroll Network, Crypto Artist, Cole D3D, Nicholas, Run Earth, One Piece, One Love, Damien, Setsuna, Nick Kanaya, Richie Rich 3, Vlad the Impaler, Paxis, Nick Manja, Lavoni, Anthony Charles, Jim Garner, Jeremy Fox, Minting Coins, Miller Hitch Test every day, and Kyle skips leg day every day. Yes to crypto, Bodie McBoatface, and Anytime Fitness, Monk's Corner staff, Arfmedic17, Bake Me a Cake, Tigara Machonisa, On Crypto with Lionel, Crayola Michelle, URL. I paused there to see if anyone else would say it out loud. And hold on, I have to sneeze. Thank you all very, very much for your support. Thank you to everyone who is a member of the channel. Thank you to everyone who is a clicker of affiliate links. I digital hug all of you. At the moment, the market just looks insane. Nothing really makes a lot of sense. Bitcoin is currently at 9,858 US dollars. Here's the 10,000, somewhere around here. Here's the scaredy dip. And here's the movement back up, which we are currently experiencing. I would not be shocked if we go back over 10,000 over the next couple of hours. We already passed it once. It seems like we can do it again. I think the weekend's going to be nuts. I think if we end up hitting a Bitcoin price of 10,500, if not 11,000 on Saturday, as the hype really gets going, we're going to see a massive wall or building up of sell orders. People trying to push the price down as much as possible, and the volatility is going to be absolutely insane. Just an assumption. Nobody knows for certain, but it's kind of looking like it's going to be this way, at least to me. Yeah, a lot of the top 10, all of the top 10, good for them. They're all in the green at the moment. Ether's up by 2.6%. XRP is up by 0.5%. I'm not expecting the altcoins ups to really hold. Just to be honest, I think we've been talking about this moment for how long now? I think this is going to be Bitcoin's, I don't want to say glory moment. That sounds a bit too intense. You understand what I'm saying. I think Bitcoin's going to do a lot of wild and wacky things over the weekend, but I assume by Tuesday, the slump will begin just because hype can only be sustained for a short period of time. And then after that, it's actually the real usage of the Bitcoin network that is going to have to come into play in order for things to continue on. But yeah, exciting times ahead. I think the word excited is such an understatement. I kind of just want it to happen and then kind of leave. I can't take the I can't take the tension anymore. I just want it to happen and for us to kind of move on and kind of have new discussions, because the Bitcoin halving has dominated news over the last month or so. I do hope that you all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope that it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching and listening. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. I'm going to talk to you all again tomorrow, so it's not like I'm not going to be here. But still have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself as much as you can. Sit on a porch if you have a porch. Sit on a balcony if you have a balcony. Open a window if you have a window. Just do something. Get some air if you can. Thank you all once again for watching and listening. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.